For centuries the galaxy carried a comfortable lie inside its heart, a lie so soft and sweet that every species repeated it without question. The lie that humans were peaceful because they never started wars, never fought for territory, never used their full strength, and the galaxy loved believing this lie because it made them feel safe. It made them feel powerful. It made them believe that humanity was calm simply because it was weak. But in the oldest layer of the forbidden archives, hidden behind sealed crystal doors and erased data, there was a story no one dared to speak aloud, a story of the only empire foolish enough to challenge humanity, the Vorgan Empire. The Vorgan were taller, stronger, older, and crueler than almost any species alive during those ancient days. And when they came for humanity, the galaxy expected humans to fall within hours. Instead, something terrifying happened. The Vorgan Empire disappeared. Completely. Their worlds turned silent. Their star systems turned into dust. Their home sun collapsed in a way no natural star ever should. It was as if the universe had swallowed them whole. And the only ones who knew the truth were humans. But humans never spoke of it. They erased every record. They walked through the next centuries quietly, politely, smiling softly as if nothing had happened. The galaxy told itself that maybe the Vorgan died from disease. Maybe a black hole swallowed them. Maybe they simply left. Anything was easier to believe than the real possibility that humanity erased them. Because if that was true, if humans were capable of wiping out an entire empire, then the galaxy needed a different lie, that humans would never do it again. That lie lasted thousands of years. Until the day the scream came. The Galactic Council hall trembled when the signal arrived, sudden and impossible, pouring through the speakers like the sound of a dying star crying for help. Every species in the chamber froze. The signal came from a dead region of space, a region with no planets, no stations, no ships, no life. The region where the Vorgan Empire once existed. A region humanity had turned into a grave. Scholars screamed. Soldiers panicked. Elders whispered prayers to forgotten gods. Because nothing should exist there. Nothing should survive. Nothing should return. But the scream was real. Not human. Not natural. Something else. Something alive. Something terrified. And humanity reacted instantly. Not loudly. Not with panic. But with the same silent discipline they once showed only in the darkest moments of their history. Human warships vanished from trade routes, slipping into hyperspace without leaving trails. Human diplomats withdrew from every alien government within minutes, packing up documents and equipment without saying goodbye. Human colonies dimmed their lights one by one, darkening their skies like they were preparing for night across 1,000 worlds. Human channels across the council went blank. Human ambassadors closed their doors. Human leaders refused to answer calls. And the galaxy felt it, the shift. A shift older than war, older than fear, older than the Vorgan Empire itself. A shift humanity had felt once before. The Chancellor, a massive crystalline being whose body sang like glass under pressure, rose from his seat trembling. "We must contact them," he commanded, but no one moved. Because every species in the room knew something simple and terrifying. Humanity never behaves like this unless a nightmare from the past is returning. The lights in the council chamber flickered as the scream played again, echoing across the vast crystal walls. This time the sound was slower, weaker, shaking with pain. It sounded like something was dying, or something was being hunted. A timid alien from the yellow species whispered, "What if the Vorgan survived?" Another hissed, "That cannot be. Humans destroyed them." A third responded, "Are you sure? Did humans ever confirm it?" The room fell silent. No one had an answer. The council ordered an investigation team. Ships launched. But as they approached the dead region, their radar screens turned black. Their communication lines cut instantly, as if someone, or something, didn't want them coming closer. Then an encrypted warning flashed across their screens. A human warning. It read, "Do not enter. Do not approach. Go back." The council ships froze. They had never seen a human message written like a command before, firm and cold. They obeyed. They turned back. On council homeworlds, panic began spreading like wildfire. Civilians whispered in fear. Children cried. Teachers spoke of old legends. Merchants locked their stalls. Entire star systems watched their skies waiting for a human ship to appear and explain the scream. But humans remained silent. And silence from humans was the loudest warning of all. Human military bases shut their gates. Human research stations sealed their data. Human generals disappeared from public records. Human governments issued no public statement. They simply waited. A waiting that felt like the pause before a monster opens its eyes. A waiting that reminded elders of the stories they were never allowed to tell. A waiting that made the universe feel smaller, darker, colder. Space itself seemed to tense around the edges of human territory, as if preparing for something enormous. The scream played again. Shorter. More distorted. More frantic. The council scientists tried to decode it, but the sound was too broken, too damaged. And then one terrified scientist whispered, "This scream is not a distress call. It is a warning." A warning of what? No one knew. But one terrible possibility hung over every mind in the council. What if something survived the annihilation? And what if that something was coming back? In the deepest corner of the chamber, the oldest being of the council, a creature of living smoke, spoke the words no one wanted to hear. If the Vorgan or their inheritors have returned, humanity will not negotiate. Humanity will not talk. Humanity will not show mercy. A cold silence filled the room. The Chancellor swallowed hard, his voice faint. Then what will humans do? The elder responded with trembling certainty, what they did last time. Complete and utter annihilation. The strange scream kept echoing across the galaxy, breaking through communication waves like a wounded universe crying for help. But the worst part was not the scream itself. The worst part was what happened after it. Because the moment the sound faded, every human world went dark in perfect synchronization. Every human city dimmed like they had flipped off the sky. Every human ship disappeared from public sensors. And every human signal turned silent. And this silence carried a weight so heavy that even the strongest warrior species felt their hearts freeze inside their chest because humanity did not hide unless something ancient had stirred awake. In the council chamber, tension grew like a living creature made of fear, crawling up the walls, twisting between the delegates, choking the air with unbearable quiet. Leaders from 100 species argued loudly, but their voices cracked with terror because nobody understood why humans behaved like this. Nobody understood why the scream came from a region supposedly dead for thousands of years. And nobody understood why their scanners refused to read anything inside that dark zone, returning only one chilling message. No data, restricted zone, human lockdown active. The Chancellor slammed his crystalline staff on the floor, his voice trembling with both anger and fear as he demanded answers from his scientists. But the scientists could only stare at their screens with shaking claws and tentacles and hands because every attempt to scan the region resulted in feedback energy so strong it nearly fried their systems, as if something was blocking their sensors with deliberate intention. That intention alone terrified the galaxy. Then suddenly, the scream came again, shorter this time, weaker, more broken, and now it sounded like something was running, trying to escape, being hunted. A trembling ambassador whispered, "What if the Vorgan didn't die?" A reptilian warrior snapped, "Impossible, humans destroyed them completely." A metallic-skinned diplomat added, "Or so humans claimed, but did anyone ever verify it?" The question stabbed the entire chamber into silence. Everyone realized the truth at the same time. Humanity never explained what happened to the Vorgan. Humanity never allowed anyone near that region. Humanity never answered questions. Humanity erased the evidence. Why? Fear began tightening around every mind. The scream repeated, this time with an eerie whispering sound behind it, like thousands of voices crying out in the dark. Council scientists desperately analyzed the frequencies, and their faces drained of color when they realized something horrifying. The scream was layered. Not one voice, but many. Hundreds. Thousands. Something was killing them all. Something old. Something angry. And that something was in the same region the Vorgan once ruled. Across the galaxy, panic erupted. Civilizations closed their borders. Families hid inside shelters. War fleets repositioned. Old refugees spoke of ancient legends. Everywhere, people whispered the same thing: something is coming. But no one was more afraid than the council. Their chamber shook with tension as frightened whispers grew louder. What does humanity know? Why did they withdraw without warning? Why won't they talk to us? What if the old stories were true? But one voice, soft and broken, cut through the panic. An elder alien, older than most star systems, stood slowly and said, "Humans only hide one thing: rage." The room froze. When humans fear something, the elder continued, they study it. When humans hate something, they fight it. But when humans vanish from the galaxy, they are preparing for war. Those words dropped into the room like a falling star. Outside the chamber, reports came flooding in from border worlds. Strange ships seen moving in distant space, shadows crossing moons, gravitational anomalies, unexplained bursts of energy. One scout ship sent its final message before vanishing. "We saw a shape, moving like a torn planet. We are retreating." The message ended abruptly. The ship never returned. On a desert world near the dark zone, an entire colony woke up to find the sky filled with burning red lines, traces of ancient energy that no species had used in millions of years. Fear spread instantly. The council demanded answers from humans, but every human channel responded with silence except for one short, cold message: "Do not approach that region. This is not your war. Not your war. Not your war." The words echoed in every delegate's mind like the toll of a funeral bell. Humans were not hiding. Humans were shielding the galaxy from something. Something worse than the Vorgan. Something the Vorgan themselves once feared. A trembling scientist from the crystalline Vega race finally broke down and revealed a secret. "There is an ancient myth," he whispered. "The Vorgan Empire once served a master. A master from beyond the galactic rim." The room stiffened. A master they called the Devourer of Echoes, the original enemy, the endless hunger. Shockwaves of dread rippled through the room. The elder alien shook his head violently. "No, that cannot be. The Devourer was only a myth, a nightmare story told to children." "Then why," the scientist whispered, "has the scream pattern matched exactly the ancient descriptions?" Gasps, cries, panic. The Chancellor's crystal body dimmed with fear. "You are saying the Vorgan Empire was only a tool, and the real enemy survived?" "Yes," the scientist whispered. "And whatever survived is coming back." The council erupted into chaos. Delegates screamed in terror. Some tried to flee the chamber. Some demanded immediate military retaliation. Others begged to contact humans again, pleading for help, for guidance, for mercy. But humans did not answer. They stayed in their silent darkness. Silent like a predator before the kill. Silent like a storm gathering energy. Silent like a species preparing for annihilation. The Chancellor finally regained control and shouted, "We must send a diplomatic fleet to human space. They must talk to us." But when the fleet reached the border of human territory, human defense systems reacted instantly. Hundreds of massive human satellites decloaked, glowing red with warning signals the galaxy had never seen before. A single message played in a cold, chilling human voice: "Turn back. You are not authorized to enter human space." "We need answers," the lead diplomat begged. Silence. The message repeated, but this time with an edge sharper than any blade: "This is your final warning." The fleet retreated. They had no other choice. As they pulled back, they captured one image across the border, a shadow so large it stretched across a star. It was not human. It was not Vorgan. It was something else. Something colossal. Something alive. Something with eyes that glowed like dying suns. Something that stared directly at them. And then, the shadow turned. Not toward the council fleet. Not toward the galaxy. Toward human space. The diplomat's voice shook as he sent his final message: "The humans, they're not scared of it. They are waiting for it." The entire council chamber went silent with a horror so deep it felt like the air froze. Humanity was not hiding from the ancient enemy. Humanity was preparing to destroy it. And the galaxy finally understood the truth behind the whisper they tried to forget. No one challenges humanity twice. Because those who did not survive to tell the story. The shadow seen by the diplomatic fleet became the single most feared image in the galaxy. Every species watched the recording again and again, unable to understand what they had witnessed, but unable to deny the crushing fear that crawled into their minds. The monstrous silhouette drifting behind the border of human space did not move like a ship, did not pulse like an energy being, did not rotate like a station. It drifted like a dead world carried by something alive, something ancient, something older than light itself. And the way it turned, the way its glowing eyes locked directly on human territory, told the galaxy one truth more terrifying than any myth. This creature wasn't hunting the Council. It wasn't hunting the galaxy. It was hunting humans. Why? No one knew. But the silent reaction of humanity, vanishing fleets, sealed borders, darkened planets, suggested they knew exactly what the creature was. And they feared it. Or worse, they hated it. The council chamber filled with voices cracking under fear as delegates tried to regain order. But every small tremor from the recording triggered fresh waves of panic. Some species hid behind larger ones. Others clung to their ceremonial staffs. Even the strongest warriors trembled. The Chancellor commanded, "Project the shadow image again." The screen lit up with the haunting figure. As the projection zoomed, the creature's form became clearer. It was vast, larger than any known dreadnought, larger than moons. Its surface looked like cracked armor made from broken stars. And beneath those cracks, something pulsed. A terrible heartbeat, too slow to be alive, too strong to be dead. The council gasped when they realized the creature wasn't floating aimlessly. Its trajectory pointed directly at the region where the Vorgan Empire once existed, the region that humans turned into silent ruins. Why would it return there? A trembling insectoid asked. An elder answered, "Maybe it is connected to the Vorgan. Maybe it is their god. Maybe it is their weapon. Maybe it is the real conqueror and the Vorgan were only servants." Every guess made the room colder. Another elder whispered something even worse, or maybe the Vorgan tried to flee from it, and humanity destroyed them to stop the spread. That possibility choked every voice in the chamber. What if the Vorgan Empire didn't attack humanity? What if the Vorgan were running? What if the Vorgan were trying to escape this ancient thing, and humanity stood in their way? No one wanted that thought in their mind, but no one could deny the fear it brought. Meanwhile, in deep space, strange phenomena erupted across star systems closer to human territory. Stars flickered in unnatural patterns. Gravity waves appeared with no source. Wormholes opened for seconds, then vanished. Space-time stretched like breathing skin. Animals on dozens of planets screamed at the sky for no reason. Infants cried without understanding why. Elders collapsed from visions they could not describe. Every sign pointed to one horrifying truth. The thing approaching human space was not a creature. It was an event. And the galaxy was not prepared. The Council sent probes into the dark region, but every probe returned the same result. A blank screen filled with static, then blackout. One probe managed to transmit 3 final words before disintegrating: "There are many." Panic erupted again. Many? Many shadows? Many monsters? Many invaders? The thought that more than one existed made some species faint on the chamber floor. Then a sudden emergency alert blared across the council hall. Human signal detected. Unauthorized broadcast. Every delegate froze. A blue hologram suddenly emerged in the center of the chamber. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a message. It was a symbol. The ancient human crest used only during extinction-level emergencies. A circle. A single line through it. And below it, a sentence that made the room feel colder than the vacuum of space. "Do not interfere, that we are containing them." The Chancellor shouted, "Them? What do they mean, them? How many are there?" But humans offered no explanation. The hologram vanished as quickly as it had appeared. And the galaxy realized something even more terrifying. Humans were not warning them to stay away to protect themselves. Humans were protecting the galaxy. Again, a young alien delegate cried out, "Why won't they ask for help?" "Because they do not trust us," an elder answered sadly. Because the last time they warned us, we ignored them. Because we dismissed their fears. Because we called them paranoid. Because we mocked their caution. And then the elder added something that stabbed every heart in the chamber. Because when the Vorgan came, we didn't help humans either. Shame spread across the room like slow poison. Meanwhile, the shadow in the dark zone grew larger, closer, sharper. The council ordered scientists to zoom the image further. And when they did, every light in the chamber flickered. The creature's eyes were clearer now, 2 burning spheres filled with swirling patterns of dead galaxies and dying suns. Eyes that had seen extinction 1,000 times before. Eyes that recognized humanity not as prey, but as an enemy. And then the creature opened its mouth. Not a mouth made of flesh, but a crack in reality itself, showing swirling void inside. The scream that came out shook the chamber so hard some delegates collapsed. Not a scream of hunger. A scream of hatred. A scream directed only at humans. The galaxy felt a cold realization drip into their bones like ice. This monster remembered humanity, which meant humans had fought it before. Which meant humans had survived it before. Which meant the story of the Vorgan Empire might not be a story of conquest, but a story of sacrifice. Suddenly another alert blared. Unidentified energy surge. Human border sensors displayed readings beyond measurement. Light years away, the border of human territory glowed like a rising star. Lines of energy formed a wall around human space, a barrier made from technology the Council had never seen. Then came the impossible sight. Thousands of human megaships decloaked, each one large enough to blot out starlight. The largest ship, a planet-sized dreadnought, broadcasted a single message across the galaxy. We told you not to approach the dark zone. They follow the scent of fear, stay out of our way. The message ended. The ships turned. And they moved toward the shadow. Silent. United. Ready. The council chamber trembled with both awe and dread. A crystal delegate whispered, his voice thin as air. Humans are not preparing to defend themselves. He swallowed hard. Humans are preparing to finish what they started. The galaxy finally understood the chilling truth. The last species that challenged humans was erased because humanity fights with a strength born only from fear, loss, and memory. And now the ancient enemy of the Vorgan had returned, and humanity was going to annihilate them too. As the human megaships drifted toward the dark zone, the galaxy watched with a fear so deep that even the bravest warriors felt their bones weaken. Because the sight of thousands of human dreadnoughts moving in silent formation was not the sight of a species preparing for war. It was the sight of a species remembering war, remembering something so ancient and violent that their very movement felt like a ritual older than the Council, older than the Vorgan Empire, older than written history itself. Every ship glowed with a dim blue light, not bright, not threatening, just steady, like the heartbeat of a giant preparing for a long-forgotten battle. And when the first row of human vessels crossed the border of the dark zone, gravity rippled like water. Stars nearby flickered, planets trembled, and even the void itself seemed to pull back in fear, as if space recognized the enemy that once nearly devoured it. The Council's sensors began to overload instantly. Entire screens turned white. Calculations broke. AI systems shut down. Scientists screamed as their equipment sparked and died, unable to measure the energy humans were producing. A trembling voice whispered, "No species should hold this much power." Another corrected him, "No species should need this much power." Meanwhile, inside the bridge of the largest human dreadnought, Titanus Prime, Commander Elias Thorne stood in the center of the ship, his face carved with the heavy weight of someone who had studied this enemy his entire life, someone who had grown up hearing the truth the galaxy was never allowed to know, someone who knew what awaited them inside the dark zone. His voice was calm, painfully calm, as he said, "Begin the last light protocol." Across the dreadnought, lights dimmed. Engines shifted pitch. Shields thickened into layers that glowed faintly like mist. The crew moved with complete silence, not a shout, not a whisper, just synchronized motions like they had rehearsed the end of the universe 1,000 times. Back in the council chamber, alarms blared as they tried to understand what the humans were doing. The Chancellor shouted desperately, "What is the last light protocol?" But no one in the galaxy knew the answer. Only humans. Only the species that destroyed the Vorgan Empire with a method so powerful it was erased from every archive. Only the species whose quietness terrified entire empires. Only the species facing the ancient hunger returning from the dark. A young alien scientist suddenly cried out and pointed at the projection. Look! The shadow in the dark zone moved. Not slowly, not drifting, but with speed, terrifying, unnatural speed. Its massive form shot forward like a collapsing star tearing reality as it moved. It opened its cosmic maw again, and this time the scream that came out didn't just shake the council hall. It shook entire planets. On a dozen worlds, buildings cracked. Oceans churned. Skies darkened. Children fainted. Elders collapsed. The scream wasn't sound. It was pure gravitational pain, a wave of despair that crushed everything it touched. And yet the human dreadnoughts did not slow down. They pushed forward. Silently. Steadily. Without fear. Without hesitation. As if they had been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. The council watched helplessly as humanity faced the creature head-on. The chancellor whispered, "They're not trying to stop it. They're trying to contain it." Another voice whispered, "Why?" The answer came from the oldest delegate in the room. Because this is their responsibility, not ours. For the first time the galaxy understood the burden humans carried. The burden they never spoke about. The burden they hid behind their smiles. The burden of a war they won once but never forgot. The creature lunged. Its enormous form collided with the first row of human ships. Every species watching screamed in horror, expecting those ships to shatter like glass. But instead something impossible happened. The creature bounced back. A shockwave burst across space, forming spirals of light that twisted into storms. The first row of human ships didn't just survive. They didn't even move. Their shields absorbed the impact like it was nothing more than a gust of wind. On Titanus Prime, Commander Thorn finally spoke with a voice colder than the void. Phase 1 complete. The galaxy gasped. That was just Phase 1? The creature roared again. But its roar trembled this time. It remembered humanity. It feared humanity. And its fear made it angrier. It shot forward again, tearing through space, ripping open cracks of dark matter, releasing waves of void energy. Dozens of human ships vanished into the cracks, but humanity did not retreat. Every ship lost was replaced by 10 more. The formation never broke. Not for a second. Commander Thorn's voice echoed again. Activate the gravimetric lattice. Across the entire dark zone a grid of blue-white light began forming, lines stretching between the human ships, weaving into a cosmic cage. A cage made not from metal, not from plasma, but from something far more terrifying, human emotion. Every human soldier, every officer, every engineer, every scientist aboard every ship connected their neural links to the lattice, pouring their thoughts, memories, fears, and hopes into the network. The cage responded to their collective heartbeat. The more humanity feared the creature, the stronger the cage became. The more humanity remembered the old war, the brighter it glowed. The more humanity hated the returning darkness, the tighter it pulled. And the galaxy realized something horrifying. Humanity had fought this creature before. And the cage they built now was the same one that destroyed the Vorgan Empire. The council chamber erupted into tears, dread, and awe. Delegates sank into their seats as they finally understood the truth humans hid for thousands of years. The Vorgan Empire did not die because humans wanted conquest. The Vorgan Empire died because humans protected the galaxy. The Vorgan Empire died because they stood between this ancient monster and the rest of existence. The Vorgan Empire died because humanity refused to let the darkness spread. And now, it was happening again. The cage tightened. The creature thrashed. Entire star systems shook. Human ships cracked and burned under the pressure. Thousands of soldiers collapsed from neural overload. But humanity did not stop. Humanity did not retreat. Humanity did not flinch. Commander Thorn whispered, barely audible, "Hold the line." The galaxy watched, breathless, horrified, amazed, as humanity fought not for themselves, but for everyone. The gravimetric lattice tightened around the ancient creature, glowing like a giant net made from broken stars and burning memories, but the pressure tearing through the dark zone was so powerful that even human megaships, built to survive supernovas, began to shake violently as if the universe itself was trying to crush them into dust. Sparks flew across command decks, metal screamed under stress, plasma cores flickered dangerously, but not a single human ship moved out of formation. Every human soldier remained locked into the neural lattice, their thoughts merging, their fears colliding, their hearts beating in perfect unity, because they understood something the galaxy still refused to accept. This creature wasn't just strong, it wasn't just ancient, it was hungry. Hungry for stars. Hungry for life. Hungry for everything. And it remembered humans. It remembered the ones who once stopped it. It remembered the ones who once trapped it. And now it wanted revenge. The creature released another roar. This time a roar so powerful that entire council worlds felt earthquakes even though they were hundreds of light years away. Oceans rose. Buildings cracked. Mountain ranges vibrated. Animals screamed. The sky turned dark for seconds. Millions of aliens across the galaxy froze in terror as the voice of the ancient monster echoed inside their minds like a whisper from the void, "You again." No language, just pure meaning. Pure hatred. And the galaxy realized something horrifying. The creature wasn't speaking. It was remembering that on Titanus Prime, Commander Elias Thorne steadied himself as the bridge shook like a dying star. His officers stared at him with terrified eyes, their neural links glowing brightly as the creature's mind pressed against theirs, trying to break them, trying to infiltrate the lattice, trying to tear apart the emotional structure humanity relied on. Thorne clenched his fists. His voice was calm, cold, heavy with grief and fury. Stay connected. Do not let it enter your mind. But the creature was relentless. Its presence pushed deeper, slipping through cracks in the lattice, whispering old horrors. Human soldiers felt visions flash before their eyes. Visions of the First War, of burning colonies, of billions dying, of the Vorgan Empire falling to madness because they tried to use the creature's power and ended up consumed by it. The galaxy had never known the truth. The Vorgan Empire did not attack humans. They tried to weaponize the monster, and humanity destroyed them to stop it. The truth hit the galaxy like a cold blade, even though no one had said it aloud. They felt it through the energy, through the danger, through the way humanity fought. Not for dominance, not for victory, but for survival. The creature unleashed a wave of gravitational force. Hundreds of human ships exploded instantly, torn apart as if made of paper. Thousands of soldiers died in seconds, their screams echoing across the neural lattice before fading like extinguished lights. But instead of breaking, the lattice grew stronger. Every soul that faded poured its final breath, final memory, final emotion into the grid, tightening it further. The galaxy trembled at this sight, because no species had ever fought with their souls. Only humans. The creature recoiled as if the lattice burned its flesh. It thrashed, its massive limbs tearing apart pockets of reality, opening rifts that swallowed stars and dust and remnants of old worlds. More human ships vanished. But Thorne did not blink. "Phase 2, he whispered. The command spread instantly through the lattice. All at once, the humans opened their inner reserves, memories they had locked away for centuries. Every heartbreak, every loss, every tragedy, every moment of fear humanity carried through history. The emotional eruption hit the creature like a supernova. The monster convulsed. It tried to scream, but the lattice tightened around its throat. And for the first time, the galaxy heard something no one expected. The creature cried not out of pain, out of fear, because humans were not just fighting it, they were breaking it. On the council worlds, terrified civilians screamed when they felt the shockwave of the creature's pain. Delegates collapsed, shaking uncontrollably. Children cried, clutching their parents. And everywhere, fear spread like fire. But deep inside that fear grew awe. Pure, overwhelming awe. Because the galaxy finally understood the truth humans tried to hide. Humanity didn't win the First War because they were stronger. They won because they were willing to die to protect others. Commander Thorne's voice trembled for the first time. "Prepare the heart pulse." The officers stiffened. Everyone in the dreadnought knew what that meant. The heart pulse was humanity's most forbidden weapon, powered not by technology, not by energy, but by the combined soul force of every human connected to the lattice. It was the weapon that ended the Vorgan Empire. It was the weapon humanity swore never to use again, because using it meant paying the ultimate price. The creature felt the shift. It roared so violently that human bones cracked from the vibration. Ships buckled. Crew members collapsed bleeding from their eyes. But still the humans held on. They refused to let go. Because the alternative was extinction. The galaxy watched helplessly as the dreadnought Titanus Prime began to glow like a dying blue star. The heart pulse was charging. And every human inside the lattice felt it. Felt their life force being pulled. Felt their consciousness drifting. Felt their memories bleeding into the network. Some cried. Some prayed. Some whispered goodbyes. But no one unplugged. No one broke the link. Not a single human refused the sacrifice. Commander Thorne's voice came through the lattice one last time, heavy and soft, like someone carrying the weight of the universe alone. We protect the galaxy, no matter the cost. The creature thrashed wildly, ripping open space, tearing apart more human ships, desperate to escape. But it was too late. The lattice tightened to its maximum. The heart pulse reached critical mass. The dreadnought's lights turned blinding white, human souls glowed in unison, and every human whispered at the same moment, "For all of you." The weapon activated. A shockwave of pure human emotion blasted across the dark zone that hit the creature directly in its core. Light swallowed everything. The council screens went white, worlds felt a distant tremor. Stars flickered, time itself seemed to stop, and somewhere inside that overwhelming light, the ancient monster screamed. For the first time in millions of years, it felt death. The heart pulse tore through the dark zone with a force so overwhelming that even the strongest species in the galaxy felt their hearts stutter, their lungs tighten, and their minds flicker as if reality itself was holding its breath. The blinding white-blue flash swallowed everything. Stars, shadows, debris, human ships, the ancient monster, until the entire region looked like a glowing wound carved into the universe. In the council chamber, every screen went dead. Scientists screamed as their instruments overloaded, sparks flying across consoles. Delegates shielded their faces from the sudden burst of impossible radiation. Some fainted. Some cried. Some whispered prayers in languages older than starlight. The Chancellor collapsed to his knees, trembling as he stared at the blank hologram, whispering, Did humans destroy the monster? Or did the monster destroy them? No one could answer. The shockwave reached the borders of the council worlds seconds later. Oceans trembled. Forests bent. Skies dimmed. Buildings shook. Birds fell from the air. Lights flickered. And then silence. A silence so heavy, so unnatural, so painfully quiet that even the void felt louder. Across dozens of planets, people looked up at the sky with tears streaming down their faces because they all felt it. The sudden, sharp absence of human presence in the galaxy's emotional field. Humans had always been loud inside the universe's fabric, even when silent in action. Their hearts pulsed differently. Their minds echoed differently. Their emotions were brighter, heavier, stronger. But now, that presence was gone. Completely. As if a billion lights were all blown out at once. A single terrified whisper echoed in the council hall. Did humanity die? Shock rippled. Some species broke down sobbing. Some collapsed into their seats. Some grabbed onto each other for support. But before the Chancellor could speak, before anyone could process the wave of grief sweeping through the hall, a new message blipped onto the screen, weak, distorted, broken. A human signal. Barely alive. Barely holding on. The council chamber fell silent so fast it felt like air had stopped moving. The screen flickered. Static filled the room. And then slowly, painfully, the face of Commander Elias Thorne appeared. His skin pale, blood running down his forehead. His eyes dim but burning with a strange mix of determination and heartbreak. His voice trembled, cracking under both exhaustion and agony. This is Titanus Prime, calling any council channel, delegates gasped. Some stood. Some cried out in relief. Some fell back into their seats shaking. "Commander Thorne, you're alive." But Thorne lifted a hand, shaking, as if asking them for silence. "The creature has been weakened, but not destroyed." A collective gasp filled the chamber. The Chancellor whispered, "Not destroyed? How can that be?" Thorne continued slowly, painfully, every word sounding like it cost him a lifetime. The heart pulse damaged its core, tore apart its memories, broke its connection to the dark rifts. He swallowed hard, coughing violently, blood flecking the screen. "But it is still alive, still moving, still changing. Changing how?" a trembling scientist asked. Thorne's eyes darkened. "It is adapting." Those 3 words sent a cold wave of terror through the chamber. The ancient monster was evolving. The oldest delegate, voice shaking violently, whispered the unthinkable. "If it adapts to the heart pulse, nothing in the galaxy can kill it." "We know," Thorne whispered. "That is why humanity must act now, before it learns what we just used against it." The Chancellor asked in a trembling voice, "What are you planning?" Thorne looked straight through the hologram, directly into the hearts of every species watching. "We are preparing the final sequence." Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Delegates stared at each other with wide eyes, horrified. The final sequence was a name no alien had ever heard before. A name humanity had deliberately hidden for thousands of years. A name that sounded like a last breath. "Commander," the Chancellor whispered, "what does the final sequence do?" Thorne closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength from memories long buried. When he opened them again, his voice was barely more than a broken whisper. "It will end the creature, forever." The chamber erupted with relief, until he added the final line. "But it will also end us." Screams, gasps, crying, panic. Delegates surged forward. The Chancellor pounded the floor, shouting, "No! You cannot do this." Thorne's expression did not change. It was the expression of someone who had accepted their death long before anyone else understood the stakes. "You must survive," he whispered softly. "If the creature adapts, nothing will remain. Not your worlds. Not your children. Not your future." Tears streamed down faces across the chamber. Entire species were breaking. Empires were kneeling. And Thorne's voice grew even fainter. "Humanity was born on a death world. We learned to fight extinction before we learned to speak. Our history is full of endings we survived." His lips trembled. "This time, we won't survive. But you will." The room shook with grief. Even species who once mocked humans now cried openly. The Chancellor whispered desperately, "There must be another way." "There isn't," Thorne said gently. "We have seen the creature's true form. We know what it becomes. We know what it devours." His voice finally broke. "We know what it did to the Vorgan," he swallowed hard. "And we know what it will do to you." The screen flickered harder as the Titanus Prime systems began failing. Sparks rained behind Thorne. Crew members collapsed around him. But he remained standing, bleeding, shaking, dying, and still fighting. "Tell the galaxy," he whispered, voice fading like the last ember of a dying fire. "Humans kept their promise." The transmission cut. The screen went black. The council chamber collapsed into chaos. Some screamed. Some begged the universe for mercy. Some prayed. Some simply fell to the ground and sobbed. But beneath all the grief, one feeling began rising. Awe. Terrible awe. Overwhelming awe. Because the galaxy now knew the truth humanity hid behind its smiles and diplomacy. Humans had not been peaceful. Humans had been waiting, preparing, carrying the burden alone, and now humanity was willing to die, so the galaxy could live. The council chamber was drowning in silence so heavy that even the air felt afraid to move. No one spoke. No one blinked. No one breathed properly. The last image of Commander Elias Thorne standing on the collapsing Titanus Prime kept haunting every mind, replaying over and over like a memory carved into the universe. His final words, "Humans kept their promise," echoed inside every species, breaking them in ways no war ever had. Outside, the galaxy fell into mourning. Cities dimmed their lights. Families gathered in silence. Entire armies knelt. Ancient species who had survived dozens of cosmic catastrophes now cried openly because they knew exactly what humanity was about to do. Humanity was preparing to die. But before grief could fully settle, before mourning could even begin, another alert exploded across the council screens. Massive energy surge. Dark zone collapse in progress. Delegates jumped to their feet. Scientists scrambled to revive failing instruments. The Chancellor shouted, "Project the dark zone, now." The hologram flickered, glitched, then finally stabilized, and the sight that appeared ripped the breath out of every living soul in the chamber. The dark zone was gone. Not destroyed. Not erased. It was collapsing inward like a dying black hole, swirling into a tightening vortex of blinding white-blue energy. At the center of that vortex floated what remained of the ancient creature, broken, bleeding darkness leaking from its wounds, its massive armor cracked open like the shell of a shattered world. But its eyes were burning brighter than ever. Furious, terrified, desperate, alive. The heart pulse had torn it apart, but not enough. And now it was regenerating. Faster, stronger, smarter. The council screamed. It's healing. It's evolving. It's learning from the pulse. But then something even more terrifying appeared. Surrounding the creature were hundreds, no, thousands, of human ships. Or what was left of them. Burnt hulls, broken shields, scattered debris, glowing fragments drifting like dying fireflies. And inside those shattered remains, no human life signatures at all. A collective sob shook the council chamber. Entire species broke down. Even warlike empires buried their faces in their hands. But before despair could completely crush them, the sensors picked up something impossible. Movement inside the human fleet's wreckage. Not life. Not ships. Energy. A strange, pulsing, golden energy moving across the broken remains of humanity's armada. The oldest scientist gasped, That's not reactor energy. His voice trembled, cracking under the realization. That's human soul resonance. Shock, dread, awe, pure silence. Because that meant only one thing. Humanity wasn't using technology anymore. Humanity was using itself. Their souls, every fallen soldier, every dead crew member, every fading spark of consciousness, were merging into the final sequence. The Chancellor whispered with trembling lips, "They're still fighting." The golden resonance grew brighter, stronger, more focused. It flowed across the debris like a river of light, gathering at the front of the formation, converging toward a massive artificial rift humans had created, a doorway, a trap, the last cage, the final sequence. Meanwhile, the ancient creature thrashed violently, sensing the danger. It clawed at space. It opened void cracks with its limbs. It howled in a voice that tore through the minds of billions. "You will not end me again." But the humans, dead or alive, did not stop. Their merged souls pulsed harder, weaving a wall of golden energy across the vortex, blocking every escape route. Every time the creature tore open a crack, human soul light flooded it, sealing it instantly. It was like watching an army of ghosts push against a god. The council watched in helpless horror as the creature grew more frantic. It tore stars apart. It ripped nebulae open. It devoured every scrap of matter it could reach to rebuild itself. But it still couldn't escape the forming cage. The final sequence grid began to activate. Symbols, ancient, human, forbidden, lit up along invisible lines in space. Patterns of light folded into each other, forming layers of reality stitched together by human grief, human sacrifice, human love, human rage, human memory. And then, the human voice returned. Not Commander Thorne. Not any living soldier. A merged voice, millions of souls speaking as one. A voice that flooded the galaxy like a storm. We finish what began before time. Every species fell to their knees. Every world trembled. Every heart cracked. Because this wasn't just the voice of a fleet. It was the voice of a people. A species. Humanity transformed into energy. Humanity turned into a weapon. Humanity choosing extinction so others wouldn't face it. The creature sensed true fear for the first time. It roared, lashing out, but the cage tightened around it with unstoppable force. The golden light expanded, weaving into a sphere so massive it enclosed the entire vortex. The creature slammed against it. The cage held. It slammed again. The cage glowed brighter. It screamed. The cage thickened. It tore at the light. The light repaired itself instantly. It opened its maw to release another gravitational scream, but humanity spoke first. You took the Vorgan. The cage tightened. You tried to take us. The light thickened. You will take nothing again. The ancient monster's voice broke into a shriek that echoed across galaxies. You cannot destroy me. I am endless. But the human souls answered in a voice that shook the universe itself. We are the ending of endings. And then, the cage collapsed inward. Faster. 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 Light folded into itself like a dying star. The creature thrashed in absolute terror. Human souls surged like a tidal wave. The vortex exploded in golden fire. And for one final heartbreaking moment, the galaxy heard the combined whisper of humanity, "Remember us." Then everything went white. No stars. No shadows. No sound. Just blinding, soul-ripping light that devoured the ancient enemy and humanity alike. When the light faded, the dark zone was gone. In its place remained nothing but silence. A silence so deep it felt like morning itself had become part of space. The blinding light faded slowly, peeling back layer after layer of glowing dust until the universe finally saw what remained, and for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy felt truly empty. The dark zone was no longer dark. It was no longer a place of death or horror. It wasn't even a place anymore. The region where the ancient creature had devoured everything for millions of years had simply vanished. No stars. No planets. No dust. No debris. Not even gravity. Just a silent hole in space where existence once lived. The council chamber remained frozen as the hologram zoomed out further and further, showing the impossible sight. An entire section of the galaxy erased clean, like a page ripped out of a book. And drifting at the edge of that void was the broken, silent wreckage of the human fleet, pieces of metal floating like gravestones in the windless vacuum. But there were no life signs, no voices, no transmissions, no energy. Nothing. Just stillness. A stillness that hit the galaxy like a knife through the heart. The Chancellor whispered with a trembling voice, "Are they gone?" No one dared answer. Not because they didn't know, but because they didn't want to believe the truth staring them in the face. Delegates across the chamber began crying openly, some burying their faces in their hands, others sinking to their knees, their bodies shaking uncontrollably. Even those who once feared humans, mocked humans, underestimated humans, now cried like children losing the last light in the universe. On distant planets, millions gathered outside, staring at the night sky where the glow of distant human stars had always flickered in familiar patterns. Now the patterns were broken, dimmed forever. Families held each other and wept. Warriors dropped their weapons and sat in silent grief. Entire megacities turned off their lights to honor the fallen species that had saved them. Across the galaxy, a wave of mourning spread like a tidal storm. But deep inside all that grief, grew an ache of fear. Not fear of the monster, because the monster was gone. Fear of the future. Fear of a galaxy without humans. Fear of how empty and vulnerable everything suddenly felt. For thousands of years, humanity had been the silent guardian in the background. The unpredictable species the galaxy never fully understood. The one species that never showed its true strength, but always appeared when disaster struck. And now humanity was no more. The council chamber dimmed its lights in mourning. Delegates lit ancient lamps. Entire species sang sorrowful melodies across star systems. But while the galaxy mourned, something strange happened. A faint pulse. Barely detectable. Barely real. A single tiny blip on the council sensors. The room froze. Scientists scrambled desperately to confirm it. Screens rebooted. Systems recalibrated. And again, a pulse weak, soft, but unmistakably human. Gasps erupted. The Chancellor nearly fell from his seat as he whispered, "Run a full scan, now." Energy maps expanded across the hologram. Waves of data rippled outward. And at the very edge of the void, barely holding on to existence, a faint, glowing sphere drifted quietly. Not a ship, not a structure, not a person. A presence. A lingering soul resonance. Billions of tiny lights forming a single trembling shimmer of golden dust. But then the impossible happened. The dust moved, a swirl, a flicker, a breath, as if billions of human souls were still there, but changed. The oldest scientist whispered in shock, It's a collective consciousness." Another followed, voice trembling. "The humans, they didn't die fully." A third cried out, hands shaking, "They transformed. They sacrificed their bodies, but their souls remain bound together." A hush fell over the chamber. The golden dust shimmered again. And then a voice, soft, distant, echoing as if spoken from the edge of time, whispered across the galaxy, "We are still here." The chamber erupted into sobs. Delegates clutched their chests. The Chancellor fell to his knees, tears falling like rain. And the voice continued, filled with infinite sorrow and infinite love. "We cannot return. Our bodies are gone. But we did not leave you." The golden sphere drifted closer to the boundary of normal space, its light flickering like a heartbeat trying not to fade. "We stopped the ancient hunger, we closed the final wound. The galaxy is safe." Delegates trembled, unable to speak. Billions across the galaxy watched with tears streaming down their faces. The voice softened further, almost breaking with emotion. "Remember us, not for the war, but for the choice. The choice to die so others could live. The choice to fight alone. The choice to carry a burden no one else could. The choice to end a terror older than stars themselves." The golden lights shimmered again, dimming softly, like embers cooling at the end of a long night. The voice whispered one last message, soft as a dying star, warm as a final breath. "Live well to be better to Dio, not repeat their mistake. And if the darkness ever returns, we will come." Then the light faded, slowly, gently, like a hero taking their final rest. The golden dust dispersed into space, spreading its glow across the void until every particle blended into the darkness. Not gone, not dead, just watching, guarding, waiting. And the galaxy bowed its head, knowing it had witnessed something no species would ever forget. The sacrifice of humanity. The rebirth of their souls. The promise that they would return if the universe ever needed them again. And written in the new council history, carved in every language, glowing on every world, became the final truth the galaxy learned that day. What happened to the last species that challenged humans? Complete and utter annihilation. But what happened to humanity? They became the light that guards the universe.